Hey, baby, this is Bonnie DeShong, and this is Bonnie's Eye and Friends. And today I have one of my favorite friends on and my co host, Mr. Todd Hunt, who is the host of Mom and Dad podcast. Todd, how you doing, boo?
I'm doing great, Bonnie. How are you doing? So great to be on your show. I just love being on here.
I love it when you're on here with me. Everybody, whenever Todd is on the show, he is co hosting. He's got it, he's doing it. And because he is the co host today, he's the one that got me this wonderful woman to come on the show. Todd, introduce Mama T.
One of my favorite people. I know her affectionately as Mama T. A lot of people know her around the world as Mama T. And she's the mother of the number one speaker in the world, Dr. Eric Thomas, one of my longtime friends. And it's a shame it took us this long to meet Mama T, but I fell in love with you when we first met. But she is a wonderful lady, beautiful story. And I think the world needs to hear more about your side of the story as raising a child to be number one in the world, but you had some pains to go through.
Oh, yes.
You
I
know,
had
Mama
some
T,
things.
I'm glad to meet you myself. Now, I have to explain to everybody, I broke my golden rule as an interviewer. I usually will not interview anyone without reading their book first. I find it disrespectful to the author. And, it just doesn't happen with me. But this time I just couldn't get a hold of Mama T's book, The Secret Behind the Secret to Success. But I
Yes.
did read her son's book, Dr. Eric
Oh,
Thomas' book, The Secret to Success. So at least I got a little bit that we can talk about, I think.
yes,
So
you do. Yes, you do.
now, Mama T, number one, why does everybody call you Mama T?
I don't know. One of the young ladies that went to college with Todd, too, Moni, she's just such a big teddy bear. And she met me, and within the day, everybody was following her lead, Mama T. And that's how it got started. And everybody's comfortable. I mean, being an older person, I got that vibe. So I actually am honored to be called Mama T.
That's awesome. Now, in reading Eric's book, um, you guys lived in Detroit, am I correct?
He was born
A-
in Chicago as well, but we moved to Detroit when he was 4 years old.
And he talks about some, being in the rough part of Detroit and growing up and having some good friends that really looked out for him, but also got him into some trouble and that sort of thing. And then you guys moved to the suburbs. But in his book, The Secret to Success, he talks about some hardships with the family. Can you give us some background on your life and what caused Eric to feel that it affected his life?
Well, I was a teen mom, got pregnant in my last year of high school, and the young man, he didn't want to be involved in a healthy relationship with me. So once he realized that the relationship wouldn't be on his terms, he stepped out of the picture. He wasn't there. My son, it was weird though. He spent most of his summers with his parental grandparents in Chicago, but the father, if he showed up, he didn't announce himself. So Eric grew up learning from family and neighbors that Jesse wasn't his biological father. He's the man I married and gave Eric the Thomas name. So, unbeknownst to us, and I'll take most of the responsibility, I didn't share it. And I realized it was my shame, not so much of just being pregnant, but the fact that I would lay down with someone who didn't think enough to acknowledge his son in the right way. And so I didn't tell the truth. But Eric knew the truth for a long time, it seems, but he didn't want to ask me about it.
Mm.
And when you see the part about living in the rough side, that wasn't the life he was living with me and his adopted father. But his anger and disappointment made him run away a lot. And then finally, he just left home. We moved to the suburbs, and he wasn't feeling it. He was so angry. We couldn't work it out in a amicable way that would, make us whole again. So it took a long time for us to get individual therapy, he and I, as well as me getting therapy with and without him to figure out why I did it. Because Bonnie, here's the problem. I have a book club now, and it talks about the thesis is what happened to us. And my mom, she did something very similar when I asked about my own dad. But it was so crazy. As much as it hurt me, because I met my dad, I think, when I was 12, and I was so angry with my mother because it was hard to connect with my dad because I hadn't longed for him because she said he had died. And yet I did the same thing. I didn't even know I had did it. I couldn't acknowledge in my head that I had basically done the same thing. I blamed it on him, saying, you stepped out, the way you treated us. So if you don't want to be bothered, I'm just going to move on. But some of the things that happen to us, they continue to create generational norms, but they're unhealthy. They're curses, really.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me many years to realize that I was acting in a way that my own mom had acted. Yet, as much as I hated it, I found myself doing the very same thing.
And Todd, you can always jump in whenever you want to.
But this is the thing about Mama T. Mama T, you also were traumatized when you were younger.
Oh yeah,
because you were, unfortunately, you were raped.
Yes.
And tell a little bit about that, because that gives a little bit more insight as why you went to seek love in a different spot. Tell about that a little bit.
Yeah, when I think it's hard to tell you exactly the age, but I know where I was living, and we moved a lot. I had gone to the store by myself. Now, backdrop, Bonnie, I have 10 sisters and 3 brothers. We never went out by ourselves. 43rd and Greenwood is rough. It was worse then, if you can believe it. But for some reason this day, I went to the store to get a pack of cigarettes. And when I came back, I noticed that the lights were off in the vestibule. And so my gut told me, don't go in there. But I didn't. I didn't listen. And there was a man waiting in the cut. And I tried to get away, but he caught me. And he was so angry that it wasn't just a simple sexual assault. And I don't mean to say simple in a way like discrediting, but
Right.
he was so vicious. And he was beating on me. I was 10. And he had a lead pipe. And he told me he would use it if I didn't comply. Well, I didn't comply because my mom said it. You don't let nobody get the better of you. So I kicked him between his legs, and he bashed me in the head with a pipe. Finally, I realized I wasn't screaming for help. My mom heard it. My uncle was there, took me to the hospital, Cook County, got stitched up. But we were told we're not going to talk about it. The shame of it, even though I was victimized, we couldn't talk about it. So she took me to Jewtown, they used to call it back in the day. Got me a Polish sausage and some French fries and some aspirin and said, we're not talking about it. And slowly, over time, 2 things happened. I lost my ability to speak for about a year, totally mute. And then I distrusted every man that lived in my community. If they were grown or over, say, 15, 16, because I was a little girl, I didn't trust them. But I was so broken and craving for attention that my criteria, when I did get to the point of starting to date, he could not live in the hood that I grew up in. That was my only, I don't know what you would call it. That was the only thing that was important, that he could not live in on the low end. And I met a guy, he wasn't for the low end, check. He wasn't a gangbanger, check. And I found myself in a unhealthy relationship because he was attracted to my brokenness.
Ah,
Yeah, a lot of women get taken in with these predators. They sense it in the ladies that are broken, and they just say, "Ooh, this is an easy catch," and they take
Yeah.
advantage of that. And unfortunately, that's how Eric got here.
That's how Eric
mm-hmm.
got here. He I ended up leaving home. My mom's pregnant with her 14th child. I'm pregnant with Eric, but my mom delivers about 2 months after I deliver my son. I get home from Michael Reese Hospital, maybe 3, 4 days, and he brings another girl over who I know, but it's not his girlfriend. It's his best friend in the world's girlfriend. And she's having a baby by him.
What?
Yes,
What? Wait. Let me back up. This man that impregnated you with Eric brings another woman to your house, and she's pregnant by him, who is his best friend's girlfriend.
girl. And she's maybe 4 months along or something. And Bonnie, I was devastated, but I had nowhere to go. I had nowhere to go. And I just looked at him, and I think I started to realize you are broken. But I could see in him what I saw my mom's men do. They would run out on her and just do all kind of stuff. So thank God, even though I was maybe a mother for a week, I could see the future.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, I
Mm-hmm.
could see you chose wrong based on what happened to you and the environment that you grew in. Because my mom was broken. And so we had inherited that gift from her, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But I had an epiphany that this would be my life, because if you would come to me and this baby ain't a week old parading your other girlfriend, who was really your best friend's girlfriend, then I knew what I was going to have to swallow whole if I stayed in that relationship.
Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering how many people listening to this, how many women listening to this, and even men who are put up into this cycle, because the men that do this are in a cycle too.
Oh,
But
yes, ma'am.
how many men, women are saying that's my life. That's my life. I can't see a way out of this. I can't, where am I going to go? I don't have a job, or um I'm afraid of him.
Mm-hmm.
Where am I going to go? And how did you get out?
Well, I must have been in a state of shock, because I have a thing where I can shun when it's too hard. I just bury it. And I said, I can't go home. I walked away pregnant from home. I'm going to have to not trigger him. So I warn you, women, be careful. Because before, when he would do dumb stuff, I had a short fuse back then. And I'm going to put some hands on you. But I said, don't do that. Just humble yourself. I went and got on welfare, but I had the sense to do it at my sister's house so that he never was aware. And I started plotting. I can't stay here, but I got nowhere to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so I held my counsel. I played like I was broke, begging for $5, $10, keeping the game played. He caught me one day with a bunch of money, and I'm saying $80, which was a lot of money back in 1970. And he said, I thought you told me you were broke. Girl, God put some words in my mouth. I said, I found a wallet on the bus, and that with your sorry butt, you better be glad, because Eric wouldn't have food. He had no clue. He thought he had broke me down.
Mm-hmm. And the thing about it is, Mama T, the breaking down of females and the strength that a lot of this in ladies to resist, You don't need this to live with, to be with the rest of it. You don't have to settle. And like I said, this is in your book. I don't want to give all the way the book and stuff like that, because that was such a pivotal point that you decided that I'm going to make a difference. And I guess how much time we got left, Bonnie, a little bit here, but
Girl, we got some time. We got some time.
yeah,
It's my show.
it's your show, because the thing about Mama T here, I don't think people understand, is your family has a cycle of not even having college education.
High school diplomas.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
yeah, and you decided, what was that thing that made you decide to want to get an education and change your life for you and Eric? During all of this, what actually happened to make you get to that point?
Whew. Getting pregnant. I had buried that molestation because it was so hard. I had finally got my voice back to a point, but I was still I wasn't much of a talker.
Mm-hmm.
But when I got pregnant, Bonnie, I was triggered.
mm,
It was a thing that came over me that said, you got 4 older sisters, and when I tell you they was beasts, you ain't gonna go up against them girls. Them Craigs and Braxtons wasn't no joke, okay? So I remember being triggered so hard to crying. Said, what am I gonna do? Who gonna look after Eric? It wasn't even born. Who's gonna look after my baby? They don't have my protection. My sisters were pretty girls, so even the gangbangers was giving us a little slack,
mm-hmm.
Who gonna help my baby? And so I got kicked out of school, but I end up God put it in me. Go back up to that school. And my counselor was so angry. He said, you've been put out. You cannot be here. And I said, but I was able to graduate. I had good grades. I was an honor student.
Mm.
But he said, you know what? I'm going to look and see what I can do for you. And he found a glitch in the system where while I couldn't go back to school by the state statute, I could graduate, because even when they put my grades down one level, I still was a candidate to walk. And I did.
Mm-hmm.
And then I left home. I left home within a week because there was no fertile soil for me.
Mm-hmm.
My other sisters didn't feel it.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, being a mute and stuck in books, I started to dream. Even in my brokenness, even in my pain, it soothed me. And I was like, people laugh and joke. People got dogs, they named Killer, Spot, Friendly. Is there such a world? I mean, and I'm telling you the truth. Is there such a world outside of 43rd and Greenwood?
Mm-hmm.
And I believed it was.
And that's the thing. There's so many people who don't know how to, are afraid to dream, are constantly told that they aren't going to be anything. Dreams don't come true.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get out of this rut. And the thing is, you sat down and made a plan to get out of the situation you were in. And so many people don't think they can do that, but you can always change your situation.
Yes, ma'am.
You just got to have a plan. Now, in reading Eric's book, it was almost like he seemed as if Mr. Thomas, his adopted father, he writes it as if he feels as if he didn't love him. When I read it at first like, oh, well, okay, he's one of them adopted dads that this is another man's son and I don't want him. But then as I read on, even in his book, you can tell that he wanted him to do well, I think.
He
And you
did.
can tell me.
No, he did.
But he had a harsh way of disciplining. And I knew that discipline because I got my butt whipped when I was growing up. Okay. But it just seemed like there was just this lion versus the young cub versus the older lion, where every male is going to jump up in their daddy's face.
Right.
Everyone.
That's part of the rights of adulthood. You're going to test them. Yeah.
And if I could jump in here real quick, when Eric tells that story, he was being defiant.
Mm-hmm.
And no man in somebody's house is going to be a man in that man's house.
He admits it. Now, Bonnie, later Eric said to his father, and he said he brought this beautiful plaque for him to say, I appreciate you loving my mother enough to love me, and
Oh.
give me your name. He said, but I was bitter, truthfully, because my father didn't want me.
Mm.
And he couldn't imagine someone else accepting him if his father didn't.
Right,
And
because it. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and then Eric had been hearing from the other side and some of my own siblings, that ain't your daddy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I said he gives him everything. He actually, I was the disciplinarian, but when Eric ran up on him, I wish one of my daughters would run up on me. Okay, it's like that, then I'm not crying. I'm going to jack you up.
Yeah, and I interjected. The thing that really broke the straw that broke the camel's back in that situation, Eric thought he was grown enough to turn another
Mm-hmm.
man's air conditioning on. Well, the heat on or off, Mama
Oh,
T?
just look, he was scandalous. He was like, I don't respect you. And you know what disrespect looks like.
Yeah.
Yes.
We went out of town. He done had a big old party, ate up all the steaks in the freezer, got trash everywhere. I'm like, you got all these people in my house. And his dad said something to him, and he said, you ain't my father. And he said, you know, you see where they tussling, Bonnie. Later,
Yeah.
he said he prayed to God, if I could just get loose, I'm out of here. I'm not even gonna try to fight this big man. I'm gonna get out of Dodge. So it was like, I looked later and I said, I read a book, Oprah, and it said, what's happened to us? And,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I'm telling you, my mother died in childbirth, her only child. To the day she died last year at 90, she was in pain from not having a mother.
Mm.
So having us, I truly believe, was her salve to be a mom. But she was so broken and stony hearted from the way life had treated her. She didn't have it to give.
Now, your book is the secret behind the secret to success. Now,
Yeah,
everybody, Eric's book is the secret to success.
correct.
So, Mama T, why did you name it that you were the secret behind the secret to success?
Because had I not had that battle and found all those blessings within that battle, my son would still be in Chicago, probably the head of the Stones or the Disciples, because he's a natural leader.
Mm-hmm.
But it would have went to waste. That situation of being raped and finding myself pregnant was like, I got to change. So what I tell people all the time, Bonnie, because I didn't know what I wanted, but I damn well knew what I didn't want.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So everything that my mom did that was caused her pain and agony, the lack of respect that she got or accepted, I turned the other way. So when my son's father, even at Eric being a week old, I think he was grooming me. If you take this, because I didn't took a few other things from him, but the fighting part, I just didn't see it as too bad, because I'm gonna thump with you if that's what you bring it to me. Okay, I got you. I mean, we was taught to guerrilla fight. I mean, we wasn't no slapping and pulling no hair. We was fighting. So
Hey,
I can handle myself, but that was stupid of me.
but you know, the thing about it is that later on in his life, it still affected your relationship. You
It
know what I'm
did.
saying?
I accepted something that was unhealthy and I knew better, but I was lonely.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, he was cute and he won for 43rd Street. Okay. That was all, that was enough. But when you broken, you'll be surprised. The vibes you give off, the pheromones that somebody know you weak.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And he took advantage of that. But I somehow God said, this gonna be your life just like your mother. Because you said it, Bonnie. His father was a serial uh I don't know, womanizer. So he
Mm-hmm.
was just following what he knew. When I got straight with myself and forgave myself, I could see he was damaged too. But see, I was smart enough to know I can't fix you.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I gotta go because I'm gonna end up going to Statesville, and my mother is gonna be stuck raising my kid, which was worse than me going to prison in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
she was so stony hearted. She couldn't help it, and she never got out of it wasn't her fault or it happened. But what are you going to make of it? She wallowed. I said, no, I don't know how to be loving. I don't know how to do a lot, but I do know what I'm not willing to accept.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, somehow you walk a different path and you come to a different conclusion.
But I want to move a little bit further, Mama T, because you ended up getting your degree at a later stage of your life.
Yes, I
This
got,
all
yes,
this going on here.
all of this, the Eric acting crazy, the whole yard, 9 yards. We still estranged. By this time, he's at Oakwood. You know him. But had my I had my first child by my son. I dated my husband at 2. We got engaged, 2 years before we got married. Then, so I met my husband when Eric was 2. I had my second child with him. My first child with my husband, Eric was 8. Eric was 14 when I had my last. So I didn't go to college until Mallory went to school full time. But I never forgot in my dreams that I would be successful and that I would have a degree. So at 39, I started college. My husband got MS. I stopped for a while. I went back. I got an associate's in business administration. And then before I retired, I got a bachelor in business administration.
All right, all right. That's what I'm talking about because everybody. Okay, now I'm getting ready to talk here for a minute. You know,
Come
my
on.
birthday
Well,
was
come on.
last Thursday, so you
Okay.
know.
Yes.
But it's to the point where Mama T, each and every one of us that takes a breath on this earth, in my opinion, that God has given us, have granted us life. He also gave us the ability to reason and to
Yes.
make choices. So if you sit down and you blame somebody else for where you are and you stay where you are, then that's your choice. But if you choose to look at your situation and say, I'm coming out of this,
Yes.
I'm going to make a plan. I've got my life. I came into this world by myself with whatever plan God had for me. Now it's up to me to decide if I'm going to follow it or
There
do
you
something
go.
else.
That's right.
Okay. But if you make your plan, it may be hard, but right now, sit down and think about that plan of where you want to be and what you want to be in your child's eyes if you have a child. Okay. That's me. That's what I think.
But here's the thing that most of us have as humans, and I've wallowed in that for a while too. The blame game.
Oh, yes.
That'll just hold you back forever. You the victim. They did that. Yeah, they did. But like I say in my book, I'm gonna share this. I said I can't blame him, but so much because I said we ain't had no Glocks back then, but ain't nobody put no 38 on me. Okay, so I'm gonna take some of that blame, even though I was broken. You gotta own up to your piece of it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's only then when I said, okay, you could hate him forever. What that gonna do? Your heart ain't got no space for nothing good because all that negative energy. You're trying to tell that girl, he did me wrong. Know what? Yeah, you did. And I allowed it because we've been warned. We get warnings. We all
Mm-hmm.
have discernment, okay? We ignore it. But if we would stop ignoring it, I ignored it the first time with the little fighting. I got the best hand out of that one. Okay. Second time, same thing. When the girl came, I was like, girl, you already know where this gonna go. You
Mm-hmm.
can't leave right this moment. But ladies, plot it up. Keep your mouth shut. Don't even tell your best friend sometimes, because they come back and tell the guy. Not to hurt you, but to say, you know, she loves you, but she don't want to leave. But if you don't stop, and then they come and blow your head off. You better
Right.
be sure who you tell anything when you got that kind of situation. Only one sister knew, and she kept my secret.
And Mama T, your relentlessness in your pursuit of being great, I know it's passed on to Eric and your other
Oh,
kids. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
because like I said, when I'll just tell everybody a little story here real quick. Eric wasn't ready to go to school when he first got down there.
oh no, he sure wasn't.
And this is the story I tell everybody, so you're gonna hear it on here, Bonnie, is I was outside in my dorm room and I heard an argument. And this is the strangest argument I'd ever heard in my life. And these guys were arguing who got the higher F than each other. One was
F,
What?
a TT. Yes,
like
Eric.
it, the grade.
Yeah, and what made it worse, Mama T, is that they both cheated and they flunked.
Oh, Lord.
So
Didn't do
yeah,
him
I
no
remember
good.
calling my mom up that night. My mom and dad that night. I said, I don't think this is school is for me, Mom and Dad. I think I should go to University of Michigan and stuff because I just heard the craziest argument of who got the higher F, and one of them was ET.
Lord have mercy.
So ET it wasn't that he was dumb. He just didn't apply himself to
Right.
life and to what he was doing, and that's why it took him 10 years. But once he got it, and I can see that trait in all your kids, Mama T. They took off and ran with it. And as he was running with it, because I want to transition to this other part, Bonnie, because you got it.
But gotta tell him he came there with a GED chasing some girl.
Oh, yeah, because the girl
Yes,
told him in the book, she tells him,
Hello?
look, if you want to stay with me, you're going to have to come to college. You
Yes.
got to go to college.
Cause
Now,
I
they've
ain't
been dating all through high school.
Yep.
Okay. And she was getting ready to go to college. She was about the business. And she told him, if you want it, the song is, if you want to be with me, you got to get a job. Hers
Yep.
was, if you want to
Get
be
it.
with me, you better
You
get
gotta
that
get a
GED and
GED.
come to college.
That's
You
right.
know,
That's right. And that was his. And I was so grateful because Bonnie, I didn't want him to marry. And Didi knew it.
yeah.
But Didi knew that it wasn't her. I said, my son ain't ready. He's still in his feelings. He got too much going on. I said, he ain't ready.
And the crazy thing about it is, because I know D and Eric when they were down there before they got married and stuff like that. And Eric was doing his best, and I mean his best to capture D, and that's what made him start looking at things that were successful.
Mm-hmm.
And he started to observe, like, okay, so you start to mimic success. The
Yes.
first thing you got to do, I think, in life
That's
is you
true.
got to mimic what you see
Mm-hmm.
mm-hmm.
successful,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because Insanity's doing the same thing over and over again, and that's how he got break the cycle, but doing
Yes.
something
Yes.
different. And so he decided to mimic what he saw success was,
Mm-hmm.
and he started slowly applying it. Now, like I said, he started to apply that really I got to push forward through this later
Oh,
on in
she
life.
gonna leave. She gonna leave.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, she wasn't playing. She got
Because
her
she was,
look.
yeah,
She got her degree. She was a nurse,
yeah.
and she was like, "I'm supporting his family. You still buying gym shoes and hats, and
Right.
like you better make up your mind." And I guess he said, "You know what? I ain't about to. I didn't got a GED and drug myself to Alabama. I better start listening." And they just celebrated what 30,
Yeah,
30 some years. I
yeah.
can't believe it. Yeah.
I mean,
You know,
and yeah.
go ahead. No, go ahead, Todd.
I mean, and the thing about it is that he broke the cycle
Yes, he did.
that his family was ridden with because they made a choice. You got to make a choice, and that's what I
That's
want
it.
to point out: a determination that I'm not going to have this. This is
Right.
what's going to be my family. Because when you look at it, what his examples at the time, the street life and all stuff. And let me tell you something, Mama T, she took him out of the projects into a beautiful neighborhood. Let me
Yes.
just tell you that right
Mm-hmm.
now. And she was determined to do that, to have a better life for her kids, because she made that choice. And I'm just equating the same thing that he had to make was he wanted a family life that his family stayed together and
Right.
his kids would know who he is.
Right. He
Right.
took, yes, he did. And it's like I I'm not gonna say I'm relentless, but I am desperately always trying to do better. Resilience. I get knocked down. I find something in that hardship that gives me the momentum to do the next best thing. When I got pregnant, I was told, get on welfare. But I said, I'm going to get on it on my terms.
Mm-hmm.
But I ain't staying on it because they ride that train till the last kid they can have, and then they're in their 30s, 40s, and they got no future.
Right.
I put things aside for my kids, but I knew I had to prove something to them. And I think I said it in my book. I married a man who was a college graduate. He's 4 years older from the projects, but he was from that life, but he wasn't about that life.
Mm-hmm.
Then Eric finally got his first degree, put his little thing over my head. I went down to Oakwood to receive it. Then my second child, she was at U of M initially, double major, science major, big head. My little one, I had to send her to Piney Woods boarding school, but she ended up getting a full academic scholarship to college in Chicago. As a matter of fact, Lake Forest.
Mm-hmm.
And so they always saw me striving for more and better, and not like dog it, but just if God said we should work, we got to work. We don't have to say, oh, I made it, and then you stop at that point. They've always seen me work. So I told them one day, all y'all got a degree. Mallory working on her degree, and I ain't. I graduated with my associates with my daughter. And then 2 years later, I got my bachelor's.
And you were an executive.
And I worked for Ford Motor Company at world headquarters. And I was working off shift, taking care of husband with MS, and still taking 2 classes in college. That's what took me so long.
But you did it. And
I
that's
did
that's the message I want everybody, because I'm getting ready to, and Mama T, I'm gonna buy this book. I don't
No,
want, yes, I am. You know what? We have to support each other. That's why I went on Amazon and I got Eric's book. I'm going to buy The Secret Behind the Secret to Success. I'm going to buy this book because that's what I
whatever.
believe. I know, but I want you to tell people how they can get your book.
You can send me a message to mommavthomas@gmail.com. Mama T, Mama V Thomas. And they can use my phone number or my email and send me a Zelle, and I can do it that way. Or I can send them a link from my Stripe, and they can do it that way.
Give them that email address again.
It's MOMMAV, as in Vernessa, Thomas, @gmail.com.
And
All
you know
right,
what?
y'all. What time?
Just want to let you know, we got to bring her back on the show, because when your son becomes famous, that's a whole nother trip with family
Oh,
and friends.
I want to get her. I want to get her and Eric on,
Oh, wouldn't
so that
that be great?
I can hear, that back and forth. Because when you read Eric's book, you see his side of everything, and you can't put everything in a book because then it'll be 600 pages long.
Right.
So you have to and he gives you nice short chapters. So I read it in one night. I read it, I got into bed, I opened it up, and I read it in a few hours. But it was like, okay, because then the questions started happening. Okay, when did he get back in with his family? Why didn't he just go back and fall on his face and say, I'm sorry, let me back in? But if he had, he would not be where he is today.
Yes. And
he says that.
Right. He does.
He said that. He said, because he was homeless.
Mm-hmm.
He was couch surfing.
Mm-hmm.
He was with his boys, on the other side of Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
He stayed but he got into church.
Yes.
But it wasn't like getting into church like, okay, that's all my life and everything like that. He found that family in the church while he was still going over to the other side of Detroit. Right. Okay. But he found that family that invested in him.
And I was so grateful. And I was so grateful. Like, some people would be jealous. I said, thank you, Jesus. They told him the same thing I said, but he couldn't hear it.
Mm-mm.
And I said, from GED, from being defiant, homeless, GED, and the boy got a PhD.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. Yes.
So
Yes.
see, don't matter what we've been through, what we were brought up in. If you want to change, you can change. Because, like I said, what's your why? You got to ask yourself. You can't just want it. That ain't going to get you dreaming and hoping, ain't going to get you nothing. What is your motivator? For me, my son will be destroyed if I have to bring him up on 4228 South Greenwood. My son will not make it. This a dog eat dog world. So what are you going to do, Vernessa? I don't know. Well, what's your thoughts? I don't have any. All I knew, I could not let my son inherit the life I had inherited.
Mm.
Well, okay, I could go. My show is only an hour, so I got to get off. But Vernessa, honey, because we're gonna meet again.
Yes.
And we're gonna get you and Eric up here.
Oh,
That would be so wonderful.
Oh.
And then everybody, don't forget, get the book, The Secret Behind the Secret to Success. Thank you, Todd, my co-host, Todd Hunt.
Thank you, Todd.
Who is the host of Mom and Dad Talks podcast. Y'all got to hear it because his mama and daddy are too funny, and the guests and everything. And thank you so much, Vernessa, Mama T. Thomas. I really appreciate you coming on with me.
And thank you for having me, Todd. Thank you for the recommendation. I appreciate it. And I would love to come back and share more, because after you read the book, there are some chapters that the epilogue, I need to say, no, that's Act 2. Now I'm in Act 3.
All right.
It's forever going.
It always will, as long as you take a breath. That is. Okay, everybody, until next time, keep your eyes